I'm Lynn Miller-Pease. I'm CEO of Leadership Everyone. And if you're just coming in, just relax. This is going to be a ball. What we have been doing is gathering alumni and interested people and having conversations about all different kinds of things. But since the time of COVID, we've, and kind of moving through, we have asked a number of people to come on that can talk about reopening and some of the things that are coming. So our first meetings were more about, are you okay? What do we need to do to stay safe? And that's still part of it. But now we're talking about, as we move forward, what can we expect? What's coming open? What else do we need to do to be safe? And we are recording each one of these sessions, these connections, so that we can then send it out and other people can see that they couldn't be here at this time. So it's really a great thing. We're gonna ask people as much as possible, if you're not talking or participating, to put yourself on mute so my cat and different background noises won't cause a problem. After our speaker, who's Brian Holtz today, is done with their presentation part of this, we're going to open this up to questions. So one of the things I told Brian before we started is if he's got the answer, great. If he doesn't, we can get with Brian later if he's got it and send that information out. But this is all about good information rather than misinformation, because I think sometimes when we all get together in community, sometimes we're talking a lot, and some of what we hear may be true or parts of it may be true, but it can get kind of, it's just like family. In my family, every Christmas we all have a different time we're supposed to be at somebody's house for supper. And I think it's just because we're all talking, and it just can very easily and very innocently get mixed up. So our person today is a dear friend, Brian Holtz. Brian went through Leadership Everyone, Evansville. It's been a decade, I think, at least. And Brian has stayed involved. He's a wonderful friend to LE, and he leads our parks department. And I'm going to say it's even deeper than that. Brian has a love of the whole community, and he's one of those incredible people in our community that is really good about kind of being in the know and talking to a lot of people. He connects a lot of folks. When there's something that needs to be done, and if it's been done successfully, I bet if you take a close look, Brian's been involved, because he's just that kind of person. He really listens to people, he cares about the whole community, and he helps make those connections. And then I would say he's determined, because in the end, he's gonna see that it gets done, and it gets done well. Anyway, so I think I've bragged on him enough. I could go on, but that is one of the things I love the most about him. And he's a straight shooter. If something's going well, he tells you. If it's tricky, he tells you. If it's not even possible, there's sometimes I come up with these great big ideas, and he's like, "Well, Lynn, what the hell? What are you talking about?" But he's real nice about it. He goes, "Maybe in the future, but right now, I don't know, because we've got this going, this going, this going, this going." And he's just a real positive energy for our community. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian. And Brian, you just take off with this. And then when you come to a place that you feel like you want to take questions, you let us know.
Great. Thanks, Lynn. I'm glad I gave you a lot of money to say those nice things. So I appreciate it. First of all, thanks for joining us. I'm glad to be here and be a part of the discussion. So many weeks ago, when we set out on this journey of the coronavirus, one of the first things the mayor did was put together a task force, and he broke those different components up. And I remember hearing about the different components and the different task force committees, and one of them was entitled Quality of Life Task Force. And I remember saying to my wife and several other people, "Man, I sure hope the mayor finds somebody else and doesn't ask me to lead that." And unfortunately, or fortunately, I got the short end of the straw on that deal. So we've been very fortunate to get together a group of leaders within the community who are working in the areas of quality of life. Lynn mentioned I'm the executive director for the Parks and Recreation Department, and really it's the best job in the world, even when it doesn't seem like it. I mean, you get to work within quality of life issues and trying to enhance that healthy living aspect and trying to get people engaged. So it's a great gig, if you will. But part of that quality of life team was obviously the Parks and Recreation Department, Mesker Zoo, Wesselman's Nature Center, the Ford Center, ONEP, the O National Events Plaza, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then finally the sports complex out at the Deaconess Sports Complex in that group. And I think when you begin to see that, you know, when all of this transpired, it's kind of like throwing a rock in the ocean or a lake. It just has a ripple effect. And so when you begin to take those things apart, and now we're kind of in that process of trying to rebuild them or put them back together and what that means. And so this quality of life task force, excuse me, has met over the past, 8 weeks, just trying to kick around ideas, where people are, what, what they had planned, what has had to be scrapped, how do we reopen? You know, what are the steps that allows us that process? And in the Parks and Rec, you know, a lot of the things we were getting ready to do, this is our busy season. And so we found ourselves scrambling to implement some new programming, some new ideas that we weren't ready necessarily to do yet, but given the nature of the situation, move forward with some other possibilities. You look at the Nature Center. Yeah, the zoo's getting ready to open back up this coming weekend. And again, they've put together a great plan on how to do that. You look at, the events of the Ford Center and, all of those things that brought people together are no longer there. And then how do we attract those groups again? But also, how do we make people feel and task force has been working with? More specifically for Parks and Rec, just looking at some possibilities and what we're able to do, and giving outlets, if you will, to children, getting the larger community involved. And so we can talk about those things. I don't think anyone's on here to hear me talk necessarily, but maybe there are questions, maybe there are ideas that people have, maybe there are, things like that. So I really want to open it up and spend some time in a dialogue more than just me passing along my sometimes useless information. So I like to open it up and answer. Feel free to ask questions and answer, and maybe, like I said, just dialogue a little bit about where we are as a community from a quality of life standpoint.
Also, we've got a couple of different ways that you can ask. You can raise your hand, you can unmute and ask. You can use your chat mechanism and put the questions out there. So I love chat, so if I get an idea while somebody else is talking, I don't lose the idea. But just go ahead and jump in, and we'll go from there. Brian, I have a question, and this may stem a little bit from when we were on the radio show together. But as you well know, with Voice, the First Voice, and with the Regional Voice, trails connections, all of those kinds of things have already risen in the new Voice sessions as being so important. One of the things that we have been able to do as a community is walk. And I know I have been on some trails and done some things that I hadn't done before COVID because it was one of my few outlets. What's been happening, or do you know how much are the trails being used? Is this something that's going to help us make sure that we can give this the weight and the importance in our community that I feel is there? Is it going to help us maybe be able to prove this?
I think so, and I think you're exactly right. We are very fortunate in this community to have the trail system that we have. By no means is it done. By no means is it perfect, but it is a trail system that encompasses 10 miles roughly of the area, and then you add in the additional corridor from Burdett to USI. So you have a lot of possibilities there, and I think without a doubt, we saw in recent weeks the usage of the greenway, of the trail at Burdett. The usage has increased. Every other year, USI does a study for us, engages the amount of usage along the greenway. On a given day, normal circumstances, about 2,000 people a day use some form of that, some area of that greenway, if not the entirety. So I think you look at that and you take, again, rough math, you take that number and then you look at the current situation. I think without a doubt, the usages went up. And I think, again, we're very fortunate to have that type of system. Again, not perfect, not complete, but very proud of the system we have. And just a shameless plug, if you will, for the high rail, the new area between Riverside along 41 from Riverside to Walnut. One of the very fortunate to be a part of that project, and just very pleased with how that turned out. So I hope that answers, Lynn, but I think without a doubt the usage has definitely gone up.
Jeff Purdue, you had a question on chat and then it moved out of where I could see it. Could you ask that?
Hey, Brian, I'm just curious, what kind of projects are on the horizon for the Parks Department that you're excited about? Obviously, you got the Aquatic Center, which is active, and I don't know if there's any other active projects, but maybe kind of speak to what's currently active and what could be in the future horizon.
Yeah. Jeff, appreciate the question. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, so we are in the middle of the Deaconess Aquatic Center. It's a $30 million project that's going in across from Bosse Field to replace the existing Lloyd Pool. That project will be done, hopefully completed in July of 21. Several other projects that we've just completed. The LST will be relocated to its new location. Most people don't realize, but the Parks and Recreation Department is also responsible for that project. The ship will be moved this coming Saturday, and they anticipate opening towards the end of the month once they get in place and everything up and running. If you've not seen the visitor center that was built along Riverside across from the casino, great addition. Without tipping my hat too much, but just kind of whetting people's appetites, I hope in the very near future to be able to begin to release some information about Roberts Park and where we might be headed with that project. Our department, for what we have and what we've done, we've seen a significant amount of projects in the last couple of years. So Jeff, the work you did with so many other people on Mickey's Kingdom, the High Rail, the LST, and the Deaconess Aquatic Center, I'm hoping for take a breath for just a moment before we build anything else. But again, always something to look forward to, I hope, in the very near future with Roberts Park area.
And I think Roberts Park, not only is it just going to be fabulous, whatever it is, I'm not sure what the plans are, but knowing how it is to be walking from Walnut to Van Park, crossing over and trying to get to Wesleyan Woods, that park is essential. Not only, it's just essential in the connectivity of these amazing things around it. So it would definitely be a missing piece if it wasn't gonna, if nothing was gonna happen, which I know, I have faith that it will. And I'm sure Jeff and I would be willing to help raise money, wouldn't we, Jeff, to make that happen? We got a whole team. We got to put somebody together. We can put people on that. Let's see, Neil, you were chatting a little bit about USI and Burdett and the Greenway. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. I was just mentioning that I use the USI Burdett and Greenway quite a bit, and they're very nicely done. And I'd say they're well utilized. Anytime we go out there, whether it's morning or afternoon, weekends, during the week, it's not overcrowded, but it's well utilized. So good traffic flow, and like I said, really nicely done. Be happy to see when all the final connections are made, but it's a good piece of work. One question I had is there a multi-year development master plan for the city as it relates to Parks and Rec? And if so, like how far out do you look within that master plan?
So yeah, great question. So we had a master plan done, and it's currently will be updated every 5 years. It's put together, and that's a requirement by the DNR that allows us to be eligible for federal dollars. So we are in the process of kicking off that update. And that'll be done. It's a pretty quick turnaround on the update. So it'll be done hopefully this fall, if not fall, early in 21. So it's a 5-year plan, Neil, that we continually update.
Okay, you said continually, so it's like a rolling 5 years, if
Yes,
you will.
correct.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Brian, is there a time when the people who are doing trails and parks in the surrounding counties, do you all get an opportunity to meet and maybe look for ways to connect, like Burdett Trail with Posey County, or what if the Greenway went all the way down and connected with the Warwick County Trail? Some of those dreams that people have come up with. I didn't know if there's a mechanism for you all talking.
There is, and more so with Warwick County trails, and looking at that, as we inch ever so closely to the Angel Mounds area to connect both areas. So there is a conversation about that, and has been in the past and continues to be. Our on the Vandenberg County side, if you were to look at that area, ours is a little different than the Warwick County. Again, not good or bad. It's just we have a highway 41, we have an interstate 69, we have a levee, we have other things that we have to contend with. So it's not just a matter of slapping down some asphalt and putting up a trail to get us to Angel Mound. So, but we do have conversations and continue to collaborate with Warwick County, especially Warwick County trails.
I don't even know where this came, or I may have dreamed it up, but while walking in Wesleyan Woods, I noticed that the rails, or the railroad that is kind of on one side that had been the canal, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And my understanding is that goes all the way into Boonville and beyond. And is there any kind of hope or thought about whether that could be turned into a high trail and connect those two communities?
Yeah. So the railroad line has ceased operations from Highway 41 at Highway 41, basically Virginia, on that rail line, and all the way to out to the Green River and Morgan area. So that railroad currently is ceased to operate from 41 to Green River Road. Much like we've done in the past with the high rail area, we have we weren't solicited. We just offered our great advice to the current owner of the railroad of that area that we would be interested if they were giving it away. We've had initial conversations with them as a possibility, so we'll continue to. I'm very good at taking anything that's free, so we're hopefully that will move forward.
That just seems like it would be a wonderful connector piece.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Brian, can you speak to some of the ways in which, I know it may not be your specific area, but it seems to me there's a way in which the zoo is opening in a safe way and how the tickets are happening. Do you have the ability to talk about some of those ways that people are going to start to be able to go back, but it's not just a flood rush without any thought. It's really meticulously planned out, I think.
Sure. Yes. And first of all, keep in mind, we are bound, the zoo is bound by their accreditation board, and, they take advice from them. Parks and Rec, we take advice and recommendations from the National Parks and Recreation Association, which we are a member of. Indiana has their own association. So, we rely heavily on those associations to give us direction. And I know our staff here in our department, we relied heavily on those agencies and associations when making any decision as we move forward. And I know, speaking with Eric Beck, who's the executive director for the zoo, I know they worked tirelessly, that entire staff, on putting together a very well thought out, a very direct, a very regimented, if you will, approach to reopening. And going through that myself, I know that you have to think, when you think you've thought of every possibility, there's 10 more. And so I know that they've worked through that. Again, the hot topic is always touch points. The least amount of touch points that an individual can encounter, the better. So I know that they're very close. Eric put out a YouTube video. I know his office did. They did an excellent job with that YouTube video about reopening and what that looks like. So anybody want more information from that standpoint, get on YouTube and do the search for Mesker Zoo. But yeah, online ticketing, so many people in at a time. They've got the markers on the ground, a very regimented traffic flow in and out of the park. Again, I just, one of the great amenities we have in this community is our zoo, and Eric and his staff do a wonderful job. And again, they have several projects that, one they've completed, one they're getting ready to really embark on. So he's done an amazing job leading that organization. So I think people are excited. I know his staff is excited to finally get people back in and being able to just get them on campus. I know he has a summer program they're doing, a summer camp that they've been just started as well. So again, just a very regimented, well thought out plan of reopening.
There's a question on chat that I think is awesome. Are there areas where the Parks Department is looking for help from the community? Is there ways we can help you do what you're trying to do? And for whatever reason, I guess I don't know how to do the chat. I can't see who that came from, but it looked like a great question.
So I think we have numerous possibilities. But one of the things we're getting ready to embark on, it's getting ready to come out from our staff, Holly Schneider from our staff, as well as Mackenzie May and Nikki Marshall working on, and we're getting ready to do a program called Park Daze, DAZE. We're going to do programming in the parks. We're targeting those low-income inner-city parks that we know miss the pools because they're not open, but want to be able to provide activities to connect those students to one another and to the larger community, plus give them some type of healthy outlet. And so that would be my first how to help, they can call our office, obviously, and we can connect them to how to volunteer with that group. We have several different volunteering opportunities like that, where you're working within our system, but working with those in the community. And then, I always invite people to get out. We have 65 parks. People don't realize that sometimes. 65 parks and 2,500 acres of land. So one of the best, I guess, advice, or one of the best things I can ask for, is to get out and enjoy that. Be a volunteer and advocate for what we have. We focus so much attention in general on the negative, but to get out and support and enhance the positive, what we do have, being able to share that in a large community, I think is also a volunteer opportunity.
Awesome. I was just thinking, gosh, it'd be cool to almost say, okay, like people say, I'm going to go to all the states in the United States in my lifetime, to take a few summers and say, I want to go to every single park, and then tell people about it, maybe Facebook about it, tell what's going on.
So when I started here 7 years ago, when I was hired, the executive director at the time gave me the name of 2 parks, and not the address or anything, and told me to go find them. And when I found them, to take a picture of them. And I knew where they were, but I wasn't real sure. I did find them. It took me a little while. I've not done that to anyone that works with us in our office, but I should, because most people know the big parks, but we have what we call mini parks within our system that most people aren't even aware of, and didn't even know there's a park there. So it's a great game to play if you're ever bored and looking for something to do.
Maybe we could make it a community challenge.
There you go.
Who can go to all 65 parks,
Right,
in a summer and record it, or I don't know, something like that.
Well, actually, that's funny that you say that. So Amy Hansen is on with us from Wellborn Baptist Foundation. She says, we issued a challenge last summer at work, and it was a park challenge. We had them take the picture at the park. It was a fun way to get people engaged. That's fun, you guys. Hey, Brian, I don't know if you knew this, but Holly and Mackenzie are both on this chat. So glad you guys are here.
I told them they had to be. So.
Hey, Neil, you had a question about the park plan. Did you want to know if you could see it?
Yep. More on the master plans, Brian. So are those visible to the public? And if so, how do we access to view it and see what's going on?
Yes, so it is on our website through the City of Evansville Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay.
And the master plan is there.
And do you share also on the website when new projects launch as they progress and complete? Is that,
yes.
Is that also? Okay, awesome. I'll check it out. Thank you, Brian.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes what I suggest people do is be curious and ask other people to be curious. So have you been curious about our parks, our trails? What can we find out? And then I think it's part of our responsibility as servant leaders to pass on good news. So if there's something good happening in the parks, if you discover something beautiful, to keep it to yourself is one option, but the other option is to tell as many people as you can about something amazing. I've been all over the woods, Wesselman Woods. It has been such a place of peace during this time that has been a little bit difficult. I just can't say enough how valuable that has been. And I didn't know it was open for a period of time. I wasn't curious. I didn't check it out. And then as soon as I found out, I've been telling people, it's open. It's open, and you can go as early as 7:30 in the morning, so you can walk before work. I'd recommend a little stick if you're first in, because there's little spider webs, but the peace and the sounds of nature and what that has been doing for me through meditation, and it's made me a nicer person. Not completely, but there's hope.
Yeah, well, there's always hope, Lynn. No, I think the other thing is any history buffs out there, look at the history of, call your attention to Garvin Park, to Baird Park, to Aiken Park. Those three parks in particular. Google those parks and learn a little bit of the history of those parks. Amazing, just fascinating information that those parks, along with others, but those in particular, just the history of them in our community and what they stood for and what they still stand for. You know, to have the size of our community, to have the number of green spaces, outdoor activities or outdoor areas is really phenomenal, because that's just not heard of in a lot of communities. When I go to meetings and talk to other directors, they're always amazed at how much space we do have.
And there's maybe even more than parks. I know in Aiken and Bayard, these are neighborhoods where mixed income, Black people, white people, the diversity mix of those two neighborhoods is way ahead of the curve as far as how people have been living together and where things are not segregated. And I mean, they are points of tremendous pride. And it's just, you walk around there, you can feel the collaborative spirit and the love of all people. I mean, it is really, they're amazing neighborhoods. It looks like Neil, you've got another question. Go ahead and spit it out there, Neil.
Yeah, any future plans, Brian, related to Bossy Field or Burdette Park? Any improvements planned or changes for those spaces?
First of all, Neil, Bossy Field, I think, is undergoing some renovations now. It is owned by the EVSC,
Okay.
and so they lease that property to the Otters, but they are the owners of
Okay.
that. But I know that they've done some lighting upgrades. They're doing some, as it relates to baseball, for instance. They're also a scoreboard increases. I think there were improvements. They're working on some other, basic necessities for that facility, as old as it is. So I know that they've started that, and I know they're working on it currently. Burdette Park is a county-owned park, and so they have their own director. Jerry Grannon does a phenomenal job out at Burdette Park, and it is overseen by the county commissioners. And so I know that there are, like any quality of life program, any quality of life, amenity, there's always those struggles budget-wise, but I know that they've worked hard. The lodge out there is a great facility. They're kind of in the same boat we are this year with the pool, and the pool not opening, the aquatic center. But I'm not sure as far as what their plan is and what they have on the horizon, but I know that, again, they have a staff that works very hard to produce and to maintain what they have.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. It'd be nice to see Bossy Field become a little bit more of a destination for the city, beyond just going to a game and going home,
Neil, we hope one of the reasons we put, not the only reason, but one of the reasons we selected that site for the Deaconess Aquatic Center was to enhance that, not only Bossy Field, but to make that a more destination point in general. You got a great park. You're going to have a state-of-the-art aquatic center, 70,000 square foot center with 2 pools, an outdoor spray park, and then the enhancements as well at Bossy Field. I think that area becomes more of a destination point with all of those things being added.
Helps improve the surrounding community as well.
Absolutely.
I wonder if Amy Hansen would be willing. I found a way to see more of the chat, and she had several great thoughts and questions. Amy, would you be willing to ask those out loud?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to first compliment you on the Evansville Tycoon that you're doing through the Parks Department right now. I think that's a really neat opportunity to get families and really all ages out to do that, and wondered if you had any other activities planned similar to that coming up in the future. I think especially right now when people are, a lot of families are trying to find things to do that feel safe, and they can, get their kids out, or we know that there's some childcare issues right now and things like that. So I just think this summer would be a really opportune time, and any ways we could help promote that, I would love to know that as well.
Sure, I appreciate that. The Tycoon program came from the thought of one of our employees. So took that and ran with it, and it's pretty exciting. Amy, we're starting next week. We're getting ready to roll out what we're calling Park Days, DAZE, where we're going to go out into the parks and do activities for those in the community. So that information we're finalizing. We're getting ready to roll that out. That'll be coming out. Some fun activities that will be open to anyone in the community. Typically, we've done cookouts and had those connected to our pool days. And since we're not doing the swimming, we're going to look at doing a couple cookouts, hopefully, as well. And then finally, one of the things our foundation does is music in the park. And people have asked about that. That, over the past couple of years, has gotten to be very popular. They're going to do that in July and August. They've kind of pushed it back, expanded it a little bit. So there are some things that are getting ready to, we're getting ready to put out on social media that I think will be very attractive in light of just kind of everything that's going on. Again, getting people out, maybe getting them out to a park that they're not familiar with, or an area that they've not been to. So, and again, all family events. So I appreciate that, but we're getting ready to, like I said, roll that out. I'm pretty excited about what we have in store.
Great to hear that. We went to some of the music in the parks last year, and those are really fun events. So I'm glad to know that you're going to be able to do those, and yeah, we'll be able to share those out on social media. So that'll be fun.
Great, thank you.
Tommy, you've got a couple of things in here. Would you share to the group?
Sure. The first question that I asked was, whenever you discussed concerns about quality of life, what kind of concerns came up?
Yeah, so I think just looking at, what, from a quality of life standpoint, what, in light of the virus, what we can offer, what is it that people need? Again, we've kind of pulled the rug out of everybody at one time, and then being able to provide some things. Again, we still have to be active. We want to encourage active and healthy living. So we began to look at some things we could start back up right away that gave them a sense. Lynn mentioned early on about just walking in the trails and making sure that we put those kind of things in place, allow people still the opportunity, reminded them again of social distancing, but being able to participate, take advantage of some of the things outdoors that we had. So I think we looked at it from that standpoint. I know the Nature Center, from Wesselman Nature Center, again, looking at what their programming was, what they could immediately return to. You look at some of the other quality of life we've not spent much time talking about, concerts at the Ford Center. One of the things that we look to in this community is kind of the convention and tourists. And that has, all but kind of went away in light of what's going on. So how do we get that back? That's a whole nother piece of the quality of life task force that has been dealing with that and trying to make sure that we're back on track to attract those future events and activities.
And
I've been somewhat. Oh, Tommy, I'm sorry. Keep going.
That's okay. I was wondering if you had any more information about the 3rd Street Park project, or if you guys.
The one that was just mentioned yesterday.
Yes.
Okay, so I do not know. Obviously that's the old Holy Trinity Catholic Church. That area, as you know, it will be torn down by the water sewer. They will do a retention area underground and then make that into a park. That information as far as the park and what that looks like, and from my standpoint, Tommy, who's going to be responsible for that, none of that has been addressed yet. And I think that's the second piece. The first piece is to begin to demolish the former church, the former house that's there, and then begin to look at what they want to do with it moving forward. You know, there's some interesting history there as well. That church doesn't look much like a church, but there's a lot of history on that location. So I know that they're working on that as well. So I know that's still in process.
Awesome. One of the things I've noticed is the Arts Council and the Philharmonic and the museum. I've noticed that people have been very innovative in giving people opportunities to do things even before they can go back. And I think that the trails and the park system has done that too. And I guess I want to give like a big applause for our community in that we've come together and we've done some really cool stuff despite of the restrictions and still being safe and keeping our COVID numbers down and all those kinds of things. And I think sometimes being willing to innovate and to try something new doesn't always happen in communities that don't have a fair amount of trust and willingness to work together and willingness to be curious and go out and try some things. So if you haven't checked out the different websites of different quality of life, do it, because you can go and listen to the iCamp string quartet. I mean, beautiful. I mean, please don't tell anybody, but I hadn't really gone to hear them over the last few years. I've heard them more now in my home than I'd actually done, but now I know how I'm going to go do it. Does that make sense? So it's kind of getting me back into some of the things I hadn't been taking advantage of in the community, and I'm excited to try it again. So
yeah, I think, Lynn, in this whole process, you know, I have yet in all the questions or all the asks that we've made, and not just our office, but the task force in general, I don't think that we've gotten a no from anyone we ask anything of. And I'm just talking from a wide range of the asks. So I think that's a testament to this larger community as well, that people generally, you know, care. They generally want to get involved. And when that happens, good things happen. Good things happen when times are tough. And I think that's what we've seen.
One of the neatest stories I've heard during this really tricky time of sadness around some of the racial things that have happened is Josh Armstrong shared with me, and then the mayor did too, and Brian, I'm sure you know about it. After last weekend, Josh had hired a cleanup crew because after the people were protesting, he figured they'd need to clean up the street. And I think, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 people came out and cleaned it up on their own without being asked. They just wanted to make sure that things were left as they should be. So not only did we not have destruction, we had people taking care of their city. And I think it's something to be tremendously proud of. And it's like when I see people picking up the trash in the parks, when I see people just unsolicited acts of kindness and beauty, I think it's going to help us come together around some of the stuff that's harder to deal with, like some of the issues that have come up in the last few weeks. Brian, what have you seen? Have you seen some just amazing stuff? I mean, I know you have.
Well, yes, and I think again, people just willing to do whatever is necessary. You know, here in our office is located at the CK Newsom Center. So the feed program has been ran out of our office or out of this building. That has been a tremendous testament, to the community. That program is still going on, and I mean, the involvement there, the work and energy that takes is amazing. So I think that was the big one. One of the people ask me, from a leadership standpoint, kind of what's my ideology, and I always say it's the same thing. It's leave it. We hear this. Just leave it a little bit better than you found it. And I think that's in general what people do. I hope that when I walk out of this position as in Parks Director, that I've left it in a little bit better shape than when I found it. And the next person can say that. And I think that's true when you're talking about people picking up trash, or when you're people wanting to volunteer for a Feed Evansville program. They're just wanting to make a difference, even if it's the smallest difference, but they want to be involved. And I think you've seen that. I have more so now than ever.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Any other last questions for Brian or each other? Brian, thank you. Wow, this was really uplifting and just really wonderful, not only to see you, but to hear more about the good things that are happening. And I think a lot of us need to hear that the projects that were in play before COVID are still going. Yes. I mean, I think sometimes we think, has everything stopped? And it really hasn't. So I keep encouraging people, be safe, but get out and do what we're able to do now. Try not to be afraid, but be safe and be considerate of the people around you.
Well, I think, yes. And I think one of the things the staff here get tired of me saying is be flexible and also be accommodating. Be as accommodating as we can, but we also have to be flexible. No one that I know of does well with the unknown. So, that's where we're at. Make the best of what we've got. And, we'll get through this.
Awesome. Brian, thank you so much for what you're doing, and your staff that was on. What a great team. And boy, it shows. We really, really appreciate you. Oh, and don't forget, June 30th, 7 p.m., Celebration of Leadership will be for its first time televised on WNIN. So we're going to figure out how to watch it from separate places, and it's going to be bigger and better and on TV and God knows how, but it's all going to come together and be absolutely phenomenal. So June 30th, 7 p.m. On WNIN. Don't miss it, and tell people.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Holly and Mackenzie. See you guys.
Bye, guys.